everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today in Titletown Packers podcast. My name is Griffin, and I'm joined by Bron, and we are back after a few months off, but we're back because there is some drama in Green Bay, Wisconsin. The draft also happened, but obviously it kind of feels like less important than it would in normal years because our quarterback wants to be traded, and I'm not handling that news very well. Bron, how are you? How have you been?
Well, this is obviously not, it's the last thing we wanted, especially after the heartbreaking endings we've had to the past two seasons. And, we were pretty adamant in our agreement that we didn't think anything would happen this year, at least because of, the Packers situation. And we never thought Rodgers himself would want out, but obviously now it seems like that's the case. We never thought that it would get to this point where Rodgers himself would want to leave Green Bay. And that is really what it's come down to here. And now the whole process of this Jordan Love Rodgers situation has accelerated to now, and there's so much to talk about. This is a true, just a true puzzle with just about a million pieces that it's really hard to put together, and we're going to try to do that here today, though.
Yeah, it's been a gigantic puzzle just due to the amount of reporting that's been coming out over the past 4 days. I mean, obviously, Adam Schefter drops the bombshell of a story about how Aaron is so disgruntled with the organization that he has told some that he's not going to return to the team. And ever since that initial story broke, it seems like every single person on Twitter who has any kind of source inside the NFL is just tweeting whatever they want to. I mean, we've seen a number of reports that have been debunked over the last 4 days, like Trey Wingo's on Thursday. He tweeted how Gutekunst told Rodgers that they were going to trade him this offseason, and now they're backtracking. Gutekunst, someone brought that up to him during a press conference, and he seemed pretty annoyed by that report. And so, I mean, that just sounds so ridiculous. And then there was the other one about how Rodgers would only return to the team, only consider returning if Gutekunst was out. AJ Hawk said today on the Pat McAfee show that he doesn't believe that to be true. Who knows what's true? I mean, all we know that is true right now is that Aaron Rodgers is disgruntled with the Packers and they are at odds. And that simple fact is not something that you feel comfortable with as a Packers fan, knowing how important Rodgers is to the success of this franchise. And I mean, I don't know what it's going to take to reconcile that relationship. I don't know if Aaron's I don't know what he's upset over. No one does. I wish we could just hear the man speak and just like someone needs to just ask him, what's got you so worked up, buddy?
I mean, yeah, Griff, we all want to know what Aaron has to say. What's we don't know anything really. All we know is all these conflicting reports, these different reports. The Gutekunst thing about him wanting to be fired. Rob Demovsky thinks it's true. AJ Hawk says there's no way it's true. All these people, making things up. We had seen, reports that, Rodgers was getting traded to Denver on draft night and it was a done deal. I mean, it's just I have to tell you, this is the most unbelievable, situation with a player, the most dramatic, the most, chaotic that I've ever been a part of in terms of fandom. And it's just really unbelievable. It's so hard to wrap my mind around all this at once. And we're going to try to talk it out, like I mentioned. And there's just so many pieces to this puzzle. Number one, I want to talk about how much of an impact you think the Jordan Love pick has on, how Rodgers feels, or if it's something more, or if it's plenty of other things. I have a lot of theories on this, and I want to hear your thoughts on what you think that pick has to do with everything.
It's such a complicated situation. It really is just a 1,000-piece puzzle that we're all trying to put together. I can't believe it's only been 4 days since this original story broke. I mean, these days they're going by so slow with new information coming out what seems like every hour. But right now, what I think is the biggest issue with Rodgers, if I put myself in his shoes, I think the man realizes he is 37 years old and he is probably not going to retire a Green Bay Packer, considering they just drafted Jordan Love with a first-round pick, and they're going to want him on the field at some point. So I think Aaron realizes that, and he's saying, hey, if I'm 37, I want to be where I'm going to retire. If I'm not going to retire in Green Bay, then I need to be traded now because I only have so many more years of playing at a high level. I mean, who knows? He says he wants to retire at 45, play till he's 45, but how often does that actually happen other than Tom Brady? How often does a player go into his 40s still playing at an MVP level? He could do it, and if he thinks he can do it, he wants to get to that. He wants to get to that new team as soon as possible, and he realizes that Jordan Love he's gonna get on the field at some point, Aaron's days in Green Bay are numbered. He wants out now just so he can make the most of his remaining years.
See, I have trouble believing that because there's these reports about him, wanting to being willing to retire from Green Bay. So is he willing to, let's say he retires, is he willing to sacrifice a year and then the Packers move on to Jordan Love? And then this is was my theory all along. If he was to retire, it would be so he can kind of like take a year off, and then the Packers will have to move on to Jordan Love, and then they'll just trade Aaron because they've already moved on. Similar to what happened with Brett Favre when they had named Aaron Rodgers the starter. Brett comes back and they had already moved on, so they traded Brett to the Jets. But I'm not sure Aaron will be willing to sit at the age of now. He'll be 38. Will he be willing to sit a full year and then come back at the age of 38? Getting close to 39. I mean, that's 1 year of the 5 to 7 he said he had left that goes out the door. I'm not sure he's willing to do that. I feel like as much as whatever he wants, we don't know. As disgruntled as he is he the type of player, the type of person to sit out, to retire just so he doesn't have to play for the team that he's played for his whole career with his brothers that he's played for so long? I just find that hard to believe. As much as those reports are saying, I just find it hard to believe. Aaron's never been that type to sit out. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make any sense, especially the competitor that he is and the drive that he has to win a Super Bowl. And I know he feels like he can do it with this current team. I just find it hard to believe, but it's another piece of the puzzle that we're just, it's so hard to wrap my mind around all this. And that's one of the pieces I don't understand.
Yeah, the report about him willing to retire this season, it's AJ Hawk said there was a 0% chance of that happening. I mean, what does AJ Hawk know? I'm not sure, but he did just spend a day with him on Saturday at the Kentucky Derby, so I'm willing to believe that he has some sort of grasp on this situation that we don't. So I'm going to take his word for that. But I mean, it's I don't know. I don't know what it's going to come down to because we obviously don't have to trade him. Gutekunst is adamant on the fact that we're not going to trade Aaron Rodgers. He said that a number of times. So if it plays out like this all summer, it's going to come down to Aaron holding out of training camp and holding out of the season, which, like you said, it just doesn't seem like a Aaron Rodgers thing to do, knowing he's 37, knowing he wants that second Super Bowl, third Super Bowl so badly. So I don't know I don't know how this situation can come to an end with us trading him. Like that seems like almost impossible at this point, the way Gutekunst talks about the situation. But I also don't know how it can be reconciled, this relationship. Someone put this on Twitter on Thursday night, because if you flash back to Thursday, it seems like so long ago, everyone thought that this would have to happen on Thursday night, the trade, because that's when you're going to get the most value. That's another fake report. The trade to Denver that Mark Schlereth reported was coming, all but a done deal. Everyone thought he was on the way to Denver. But after the draft, someone pointed out how maybe this was just Aaron's like, all right, I'm gonna play in Green Bay at least one more year, but this is just like a slap in the face for the Packers PR. Just, I don't know, out of spite. I'm not sure. But I don't know what this situation can come down to, because I don't know if Green Bay is willing to trade him this summer for future picks. I I don't know what would sway them in that direction, but I also don't know what would sway Aaron in the direction of coming back to the team, because there's a report that he did turn down a extension from Green Bay. We'll get into that, but I just don't know what the future holds. It's going to be a very long summer for us Packer fans.
This is something that they've known about for a long time. Obviously, Brian Gutekunst said that to Sports Illustrated for the Monday Morning Quarterback article that I'm sure some people have seen, not everybody, but that was one thing he had said. This is not new. And if they really were interested in trading Rodgers, like you mentioned, it would have happened before the draft. I really think it would have happened before then, because that was when they could maximize their value on him. But now at this point, it's very clear that they want him as their quarterback based on the fact that they've kept him in the fold past the draft when they could have gotten that number 3 pick and more and plenty of more. It makes you feel good to know that at least they are staying tried and true to the fact that they are not going to trade Aaron Rodgers, barring something unforeseen, I guess. But, Gutekunst was asked, under any circumstances, will you trade Aaron Rodgers? And he said, absolutely not. We are not trading Aaron Rodgers. So I have confidence in the front office's, statement there. But the one thing I'm not sure about is how they can get past this with Aaron in the fold. It's just like the problem is we don't know what he wants, and we're sitting here he hasn't spoken about anything yet. I'm sure he'll at one point potentially go on the Pat McAfee show. All we've heard from is he's gone to the Kentucky Derby. He said something to Mike Tirico along the lines of, "I love Green Bay, I love the fans, and I was disappointed that this news got out," which I'm not sure what to even make of that. He had an interview regarding nothing but horse racing at the Kentucky Derby. Nobody asked him about football. And then we saw him like a Devontae Adams tweet that said, "You got to appreciate what you got while you got it." And Aaron Rodgers liked that. And to me, what that all that was you're talking about Devontae Adams, loves his superstar quarterback, and to me, he's basically saying, treat him right because you don't know how long you're going to have a guy like that, and they need to treat him right. And I think it's Devontae telling the Packers to do that, and I think Aaron's obviously agreeing by liking that tweet. I don't think Devontae is rooting for Aaron to leave. Certainly, I just think we have to wait and see on that. And it's becoming painful, really, as we the days, the hours go on, where new little sprinkles of information come through that really mean nothing, but everybody's trying to dissect and understand without Aaron Rodgers really talking and saying anything. So that's definitely one thing to me is that there's a lot of things going on, but the one thing we know for sure is that Aaron hasn't said anything to this point, and that's really the key factor here.
I don't know if he's gonna do an interview before he's traded, assuming that he does get traded, which might not happen. But I don't know. I don't know if he's gonna go on the McAfee show because I would like him to. I would like to hear his perspective on this situation. But another report that came out today was Rappaport saying that the release of Jake Kumaro last summer was a death knell in the relationship. I think that's been kind of blown out of proportion today on Twitter, but I mean that's something that Aaron's passive aggressively hinted at over the years about how he doesn't have much say over the personnel decisions of the Green Bay Packers. Go back to Jared Abbrederis. Remember, he was really rallying for Abbrederis. He gets cut. Kumaro gets cut. We didn't bring back Randall Cobb. Jordy Nelson we cut. Clay Matthews we let walk. I mean, this is just a thing. Obviously, people on Twitter love to talk about. People on Twitter have been really pissing me off lately. But people on Twitter love to talk about how he's the quarterback. He's not the GM. He needs to know his place. Yeah, obviously, he's not. He doesn't want to be the co-general manager with Brian Gutekunst, but others, when he looks around the league, sees Tom Brady, who the Buccaneers bend over backwards for this season, and he wins a Super Bowl, and other superstars in all of sports, they get that treatment where they have an input on the way the team is built because they are a large reason for why that team is successful. Aaron has gotten none of that treatment over the years, and I mean, credit to him, he hasn't thrown a fit over it ever. I mean, he's other than little comments he's made at press conferences and whatnot, but I mean, it gets to a point where the last straw on the camel's back, if you will. He just gets so irritated by all of it, where he gets to this point where he wants out of the team and he wants to get on with his life and go to a team who will treat him like the superstar quarterback that he is. Now, I understand the Packers' perspective on all of this as well. Now, there's just so much, Bron. There's so much. You could talk about Jordan Love, that selection. I understand the Packers' perspective on selecting Jordan Love in last year's draft. I don't think it was worth the 26th pick, let alone trading up for him, because I do not think he was that good of a quarterback in college, and it doesn't seem like the rest of the league believes so either. But I understand the fact that your quarterback is coming off of 2 pedestrian seasons. You're going to draft for the future. The worst time to look for a quarterback is when you need one. But I also am irritated by the selection because if you look at the teams if you look at the offense in 2019 and 2018, you can argue that Aaron's play was due to the fact that there was not much around him outside of Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones. So getting him more talent will probably produce better results. He was last year's draft. He was on the Pat McAfee show talking about how he assumed it would be a receiver, and they did not contact Aaron Rodgers before selecting Jordan Love, something that the Buccaneers did for Tom Brady. He was in the loop about how they were going to select a quarterback in the 2nd round this year. And who else? Who was the other one? Who was the other quarterback that got drafted?
Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton, right. And even Andy freaking Dalton was contacted in advance of the Bears selection of Justin Fields. So I understand. Yeah, he just got signed this season. Never played a game for the Bears, but he was contacted about this stuff. So I understand why Aaron would be frustrated about that pick. And now it gets to this point where he knows he's on the outs at some point. He's not going to retire a Green Bay Packer like he wanted. So we're back to back Hall of Fame quarterbacks have ended like this in Green Bay. I mean, it's pretty embarrassing. They didn't really learn a lesson from Brett Favre, and they're back at this situation with Aaron Rodgers. So it's just there's so many layers to all of this, Bron.
Yeah, well, I know you're saying it's over and this and that, like, and it looks to be that way, unfortunately, and but I still have a lot of hope that they can make something happen here, and in order to reconcile, it's probably going to include something long term, some kind of security for Aaron, and I feel like this is a discussion that I want to have with you, Griff. I mean, for me, honestly, I feel Aaron's pain on this one because he's been through a lot with this organization. He's been mistreated greatly compared to other star quarterbacks, and even just like you mentioned, first of all, the fact that he wasn't even reached out to or given a heads up that it's possible that they'd draft a quarterback. To blindside him with something like that, you're asking him to be upset by that. You're asking him to get aggravated. You're asking him to demand to leave this team, and that's just poor management. Obviously, it starts with Brian Gutekunst. And it starts with Mark Murphy as well. I think both of them have done a very poor job handling this situation. And considering both of them have large experience in the Brett Favre saga of 2008, the fact that this has become a reality once again really puts just a damper on the entire. No matter what the Packers have done, as successful as they've been, as many wins as they've had, as well as of a roster they've put together over the years, they just the fact that they're not appreciating Aaron Rodgers enough, and they've failed now on two separate occasions to keep their starting quarterback happy or at least content with this team. Many different things over the years, whether it's like you mentioned, the guys they haven't re-signed, the guys they've released. He just hasn't been given a heads up regarding anything, and he gets blindsided. And at first, I can tell you for a fact that he has always talked about being the guy who he's the quarterback. He's not the GM. He understands his role. He's said that plenty of times. But he's also, he's not some just random guy. He's not some rookie quarterback. He has built more for this team than Mark Murphy, than Brian Gutekunst, than any of them combined have built for this franchise. And Rodgers deserves input. He deserves a heads up, and he deserves recognition regarding all input on all moves. I think he deserves that. And I, that's not a fan thing to say. That's not, to me, that's just the truth. You're not talking about any player. You're not talking about an employee. This is the guy who helped you build this thing, and he's been carrying this team for years. I think he deserves more than just input. He deserves really to have a say, a strong voice in that management room. And instead, they've alienated him. And now, the management deserves every single bit of criticism they're getting as they've let this situation come up once again. This time even worse because Aaron Rodgers has been better than Brett Favre, and they've now let it get to a point where the fact that they're even risking losing him and letting him leave this building is just unbelievably terrible for this franchise. And it would be a really sad day to see Aaron Rodgers walk out the door.
Yes, it would. It would. Just it's just been such a depressing 4 days, thinking that as maybe a likelihood at this point. But we got a long summer to go. I mean, this situation it's not exactly like the Brett Favre situation where it's kind of the opposite, where Favre wanted to come back, but Green Bay did not want him. They were ready to move on, whereas this time Aaron does not want to come back, and the Packers are desperately trying to bring him back. I mean, 3 different plane trips. Matt LaFleur, Mark Murphy, Brian Gutekunst privately going to visit him in California. I mean, that's the same exact thing that they did with Brett Favre down in Mississippi. It's just you think they would learn a lesson about how to handle your superstar Hall of Fame quarterback, but here we are back in the same situation. It's going to be in. We knew it was going to be an ugly transition. I mean, from Rodgers to Love, we knew at some point there was going to be a transition, and it was probably going to be ugly. And now here we are.
Yeah, for me, honestly, I think the one aspect of this whole situation that really isn't getting talked about a lot is Matt LaFleur's, impact on all of this, his situation in this entire, dramatic saga, if you will. I think Matt LaFleur really is kind of at the center of all of it, but at the same time, I feel like has very little influence on the whole situation. To me, this is because all these reports coming out about Matt LaFleur over the years. There's been a couple regarding the idea that he doesn't have a lot of say in the personnel decisions either. And to me, that was surprising at first, but I've continued to hear tidbits of information from guys like Adam Schefter, side comments regarding Matt LaFleur's, input on personnel decisions and acquisitions and even the draft. And I hear more and more that he doesn't have a ton of pull in that room regarding player acquisition. So to me, that points to a sign that he really doesn't even have much of a role in the front office, which kind of leaves Mark Murphy, Russ Ball, and Brian Gutekunst to handle that. And then in terms of his relationship with Aaron, I definitely think that Aaron has a lot of regrets about that last NFC Championship game, but Matt LaFleur does as well. But other than that, other than the way it's ended the past 2 years, I think that relationship is strong. But I just think Matt LaFleur doesn't have enough influence in that building. As crazy as that sounds, my theory is that he just doesn't have enough influence in that building. Even if he's the one that's on Rodgers' side and that Rodgers is siding with him, I'm not sure he has enough influence to really direct either direction. Direct either side in the right direction. And that's really he's at the center of it all, being right between the player as the head coach and right between the front office as the head coach. He's the middleman basically, and I don't think he has enough pull in either direction to kind of make an impact. And it's crazy to even think about, but I want to hear your thoughts on that, Griff.
I feel very bad for Matt LaFleur. I mean, there's really not much he can do. He seems like the most upset by this entire situation because he's going into this season preparing for Aaron Rodgers to make a return to the team, obviously, for another run at a title with Rodgers at quarterback. He's not ready to go to Love just yet. I just feel bad for the guy. There's been conflicting reports, I feel, about his involvement in the Love pick. I mean, some have said that he had no idea they were going to pick Love, and then obviously, I mean, I think we all thought he knew it was going to happen or potentially could happen. So who really knows how much sway he had in that decision? But I do feel bad for the guy. He's kind of been spoiled. He went from Marcus Mariota in Tennessee, and he came up here got to play with Aaron Rodgers, who he described as the best to ever do it. And they've won 26 games over the 2 years. So he's probably the most affected by this entire situation, knowing he might have to go to a rookie quarter or a quarterback who's never played a snap in the NFL this season. So of course he desperately wants Rodgers to come back. But yeah, like you said, I don't know how much his opinion really matters in all of this. I don't know. Aaron obviously has respect for the guy, loves working for the guy, loves the offense that he's built, but I don't know if Matt LaFleur is enough to bring him back. I mean, side note, Aaron's top locations reportedly are the 49ers, the Raiders, and the Broncos. If he wants to go to Las Vegas to play with John Gruden, I mean, I cannot think of a worse situation to be in, coming from Green Bay, going all the way out to Vegas to play in that offense with a worse defense, with probably worse playmakers around him. So I think that would suck for Aaron, and I think he would regret that decision pretty quickly. But I mean, on Matt LaFleur, I don't know what the man can do. I think this is all on the front office to try and repair.
I know for a fact that Matt LaFleur will be extremely disappointed and even angry if Aaron Rodgers is not the starting quarterback in 2021, because I think he knows very well that Rodgers is a ticket to a potential Super Bowl run every year, and to lose that, it puts everybody's job on the line. And I've mentioned this before, but if Rodgers doesn't, as soon as Rodgers leaves, if that happens, Gutekunst's job is on the line right away. His job security is cut in half. The same goes for Matt LaFleur. Mark Murphy his time is almost running out in terms of his age, but his job is on the line as well, and just about everybody in that building's job is on the line. And if Brian Gutekunst, if Matt LaFleur, if Russ Ball, if Mark Murphy, if they let Rodgers walk out the door, everybody's job, it could cost every single person in that organization's job, because that the timeline is all messed up there. And to me, I never said Rodgers is definitely leaving at some point. I still have hope, and I have had hope that Rodgers would be able to play like he did last year. Even right after that pick, I said if Rodgers plays well enough, it's very possible that Jordan Love never sees the field. 42% of first-round quarterbacks since the year 2000, only 42% have re-signed with their first-round teams, the teams that drafted them. And that's not a high number. There's a strong likelihood that Aaron Rodgers continues to outplay Jordan Love, that Jordan Love isn't very good. Those things are all possibilities. Now, if Aaron Rodgers leaves, there is no room for error there. Jordan Love has to be the MVP level quarterback. But there, I don't even want to talk about Jordan Love. I just want to talk about the idea that now that if they somehow let Rodgers slip through their fingers in any capacity, whether it's through a trade, whatever, if they make a decision or allow Aaron Rodgers to slip through their fingers, it will be the biggest mistake in team history, and it will live. It will live on with every single member of that organization. That will be their reputation, and that will be their legacy. So to me, there has to be something. Something has to give here. I want to hear from him because I just doubt that he would truly like just shut down any idea of playing for his team again, the team that he loves so much with the fans. I'm not going to sit here and say I think he's getting traded. I just don't see it. As much as these reports come out, I know that there's a disgruntlement situation. I know that he's upset, but I just don't see a scenario where he plays for another team. It does not make sense to me. The organization has to set everything aside and do what's best for the team. Brian Gutekunst sounds like he's prepared to do that, but whatever that is, they have to do it. I don't know if it's, and I want to ask you about this, Griff. We've talked about this a little bit, but what if he does want Gutekunst fired? I mean, what happens? They're not going to trade Rodgers regardless. Gutekunst said in the Sports Illustrated article that he was, when he heard that the first time, he had a lot on his plate this weekend, with the draft, but all he could think about was that report. Maybe he has a legitimate fear that Mark Murphy could choose Aaron Rodgers solely due to the fact that they could actually win with Rodgers, but the uncertainty of Love still exists, and that's not enough for Mark Murphy. It's not like Mark Murphy picked Jordan Love. He signed off on it, but it's not like he picked him. Would there be a decision there? That's an interesting question, but I want to hear your thoughts on that whole report, that whole situation that we're not even sure is true.
I mean, yeah, we're not even sure if that's true, but if it is true, I think it's been way blown out of proportion by whoever reported it, and then obviously the media reaction to that report. But if it's true, it was probably just it's. I don't think Aaron made it as clear cut as I'm not coming back until you fire Brian Gutekunst. I doubt that happened. I highly doubt that happened. But if it did come down to that for Mark Murphy, I cannot imagine that he would fire Brian Gutekunst. I just don't think that's not a Packer thing to do. It's not in their DNA as an organization to choose player over general manager. I don't think they're going to side with Aaron Rodgers on that. I think if that's the case, Mark Murphy's going to say, okay, Brian, you handle the situation. You try to trade him. You try to let him retire, let him hold out, whatever it may be, but we're not going to fire you. And I highly doubt that report is even true. I think maybe it was something simple like I just don't like the guy and I'm not going to come back because he's there and he's trying to lowball me with an extension offer. But I don't think he made it as clear cut as I'm not coming back with Gutekunst in the building.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't think it's true because he's never been the type. Like I said, he always says he understands his role. I don't think he'd call for Gutekunst's head. I think what's more likely is that he just wants some of those that input. He wants a little bit of he just wants to feel like the superstar that he is. He just wants to be treated with some respect. I think the one thing the Packers have done, but they've only limited it to this is paying him, handsomely over the course of his career. But I feel like, there were reports that he requested, to be the highest paid player in the league, rightfully so. He just won the MVP. He's showing no signs of slowing down. There was a report about that in terms of the contract talks that went on over the past few weeks or months. That was one of the things that Rodgers wanted, and they apparently weren't able to do that, obviously, since they haven't come to an agreement. And that's now that's off the table. Now that they haven't paid him, at that level that he deserves, that also raises the questions there about, if they're not paying him the way he should be paid and they're not treating him the way he should be treated, Rodgers probably feels disrespected to the point that, he wants, he wants some kind, at least he wants to, leverage the team into doing something. Or I don't think he wants to be traded. I think he'd be open to going somewhere else, but I don't think he's actively, I don't know. I just don't see him actively looking to be traded. I don't think he's like done with Green Bay, as these reports say. When Rodgers, all these things that get reported about Rodgers are usually very extreme, and then Rodgers, talks about it, and kind of it's really somewhere in the middle. And I think Rodgers would be open to a trade, but I don't think he's completely done with this team. I just think that there's some things that need to be worked out before he can come back, and he has every right to want some things. He has every right to demand some things, including some respect. And including, to be paid better and also have some security with this team because they say he's going to be the guy for the future in the long term. but they're not putting the money where their mouth is. And to me, that's what it comes down to. So that it's just such a, we really don't know anything about this whole situation, but I'm trying to sum it all together, put all these puzzle pieces in order, like, and it's just, this is what I've come to. I just don't see a scenario with some of these things playing out where he's not a Packer, and I don't see him sitting out either. So I'm going to ask you, Griff. I mean, do you see him suiting up? Let's say the Packers keep to their word and don't trade him, and let's say they don't meet his demands, and there's just a stalemate still. Do you think he would sit out, or do you think he would just come and play, and just have, and he would play almost, in spite, of what the Packers have done, and how they've treated him?
I mean, I think best case scenario for the Packers is that they come to some sort of an agreement where Rodgers does play for the Packers this season, and that puts another chip on his shoulder, like the Jordan Love thing did, like being drafted number 24 overall did in 2005, because Aaron is at best when he has a chip on his shoulder, and he plays at an MVP level, and this team wins a Super Bowl. So if anything, this could be a pro for Aaron Rodgers' success, like the Jordan Love pick was. But I mean, I'm gonna ask you, Ron, because I just cannot think about this. At what point does this come to an end where Rodgers is playing for Green Bay this season? Does that mean that he was offered an extension and he signed the extension and he's going to be here for 5 more years, making more money than Mahomes is? Is that the only place that this can come to where Rodgers is playing in Green Bay next season?
I don't even know if Rodgers wants like a 5-year deal. I know that he wants security for the next 2 years. I mean, at least so he's not sitting here like, I have no guaranteed money on my deal. I mean, to me, this is like, well, look at Russell Wilson. Everybody thought he was getting traded, and he even put out a list of teams himself. I mean, his agent literally listed teams that he could go to. He never demanded a trade. There's no, Rodgers hasn't said anything yet. There's been no demanding of a trade. There is, all we know is he's disgruntled is the word that everybody's throwing around. I don't know what he wants. The only way it ends is if they meet his demands, or if Rodgers. I mean, what is Rodgers? Like I said, we've talked about this. I don't think he's going to sit out. You don't think he's going to sit out. So what happens then? He plays. That, I mean, what, I don't know what else there is to say, really. I mean, unless something, unless they just, break their words that they've been saying, their promises that they're not going to trade him. They've said it probably 50 times in the last 2 weeks that they're not going to trade him, starting the Monday before the draft, where we all thought it was case closed. Rodgers is our quarterback. And then that bombshell came out on Thursday, and they continued to say, we're not trading Aaron Rodgers. The best opportunity would have been on Thursday. I don't know what it could get to where they start finally saying, okay, we're going to trade him. It wouldn't be smart. I don't see it happening. My guess is he ends up suiting up for Green Bay, just like Russell Wilson will this year for the Seattle Seahawks after all this stuff came out that he wants to leave, Seattle. I mean, it's one of those things where Rodgers, he's leveraging everything he can right now. He's trying to get some of those things that he wants, whether it's contractual, whether it's, getting treated better, whether he wants something done, in the front office, whatever it all is, he's trying to leverage all that now. Green Bay has time on their side, considering there's multiple months until training camp. I don't know what happens there, but I mean, Rodgers isn't going to virtual meetings right now. He is holding out of these. It's voluntary, so it's not, I'm not sure he would even go anyway. He doesn't need to go. He's an expert in this offense. I mean, there's just so many variables. How I think it ends is whatever they do, there's got to be, if Rodgers is going to come back, and with a reconciliation, it's going to be probably with a contract. It's going to be, and I think it's also going to be with a better understanding and a kind of a meeting of the minds where they come to an agreement regarding, the future of this team with him in it.
I mean, I think the closest thing we can look at is the Houston Texans situation from earlier this offseason with Deshaun Watson, where Deshaun was saying he wants to be traded. He's not going to play this season unless he's traded. And, the Houston front office was saying the same things that our front office is saying right now. We're not going to trade Deshaun Watson. We think we can get past this thing. We think we can bring him back to the team in 2021. But before all the legal issues, obviously, with Deshaun, I think everyone assumed that at some point he would be traded. So that situation is very similar to this one, where the quarterback wants out saying he's not going to play, and the front office saying, well, we're not going to trade you, so what it's going to come down to. Deshaun was saying that he would have – there were reports that Deshaun would just not play in 2021. I mean, I don't know. If Aaron says straight up, I'm not going to play this season, I'm fine with whatever money I'm going to lose out on, I'm not going to play, I guess the Packers would trade him. I think that would happen, especially after June 1st, where it's a significantly smaller cap hit for the Packers. I think they would get to that point where they're willing to trade him. But if I just don't know, man. I don't know if maybe if Mark Murphy and Gutekunst just totally like just simp for Rodgers, say we're sorry, apologize, meet whatever demands he wants. We'll do whatever you want. Please just come back to the team. We'll give you a 10-year deal. Maybe at that point, Aaron would say, "Okay, fine. I'm gonna suit up and play." I just I just don't know. I just don't know. This whole situation is just such a mess, such a gigantic puzzle to put together, especially only relying on outside reporting. And the other thing that just is just so annoying, I'm sure it's annoying for Aaron too, is that even before this whole situation, Brian Gutekunst kept saying, and Matt LaFleur kept saying, Aaron Rodgers is our quarterback for the foreseeable future. What does that mean? What does that mean? Does that mean 2021? Does that mean 2022, 2023? No one knows. They wouldn't say. I mean, now we've gotten the response from Gutekunst that he's our quarterback for the foreseeable future, 2021 and after and beyond. Like, but before that, it was just foreseeable future. What does that mean? Because we were talking about this on the night of the draft, Ron, where there was a report that we did offer him an extension and he declined it. It was probably some stupid lowball offer where all the guaranteed money was packed in years 1, maybe 2, and then after that there was no guaranteed, obviously, so we could just move on if we wanted to. I'm sure that was the case with whatever extension we offered him. And Aaron's not stupid. He's not going to sign that because we're just going to be in the same situation we are right now 2 years from now. So he just wants commitment, in my opinion. I think he just wants the team to financially commit to him beyond just saying the foreseeable future. He wants them to put their name on it, put their money where their mouth is, you know? Just give him a financial commitment that he's going to be the quarterback. The best way to do that would have been to trade Jordan Love on draft night, which I was half expecting to happen, but it did not happen. I don't know. I just cannot see this organization moving on from Jordan Love out of spite almost. I just can't see them doing that.
To me, one thing with this draft class was that it was a complete 180 from what we usually do as an organization. It seemed like we filled a lot of needs for this current team as opposed to drafting for the future. Whether it's getting a bunch of O linemen that can help create competition all across the line, adding a slot receiver for the first time since Randall Cobb. We got a defensive lineman. We got a depth running back. We added all these different pieces to the roster that look like they can help us right away, including 2 corners that I really liked. It's just like, and their athletic thresholds were completely different. I mean, it was like they threw the athletic threshold thing out the door almost completely with some of their picks. I don't know if this was. I mean, at this point, I don't think a draft class is going to solve Aaron Rodgers the situation there. I mean, I think it couldn't hurt. And I think this draft class helps to make the team better right away. And maybe, they're trying to, give Rodgers that kind of hope that they've improved the team with this class. But, either way, this was a class that helps the team now. I personally really like the class. The players they got. My favorite was Amari Rodgers because he had a desire to come to Green Bay. And obviously, they made that happen, which was super exciting to see them, finally add that receiver, especially in the slot that they've kind of been missing badly since they let Randall Cobb walk regrettably. And so, yeah, I don't know. I love this class. I don't know how it relates to the Rodgers situation, if at all. But to me, that was definitely, let's talk about this draft a little bit, Griff. Tell me your thoughts on that first round pick, Eric Stokes, the cornerback out of Georgia.
It sucks that all the Rodgers news broke the day of the draft because it kind of put a damper on everything. I think I'm speaking for all Packers fans there. Eric Stokes, excited about the pick. Maybe they reached a little bit, but he's got obviously great speed. He says he ran a 4.25. Obviously, it was at his pro day, so who really knows about those numbers? But he is a very fast corner. The thing he struggles with is change of direction. Didn't have a very high shuttle 3-cone drill time. He's kind of inconsistent on that front, but he is very fast and he's got all the tools in the world to become a great cornerback. So I'm excited about that pick, excited about what our defensive coaching staff can turn him into. I don't know if he steps in and starts right away like Jair Alexander did, but I think in a couple years he'll be a pretty solid addition for the Packers, optimistically speaking. Outside of that, I think we had, like you said, I think we had a really great draft, a really, really efficient one, addressing all the needs we had on this team, depth wise and starter wise. We got a linebacker, defensive lineman, couple offensive linemen, and even a running back thrown in there in the seventh round this time, not in the second round. That's called good value, Braun. Um, but I think my favorite pick is Amari Rodgers because we finally drafted a receiver. First time since 2018, I believe, we drafted a receiver. He looks very promising. Gutekunst said that in the second round they were down between Amari Rodgers and Josh Myers. Josh Myers, who we ended up drafting, and we ended up getting Rodgers in the third round. So that's a steal right there, steal and a half, if you will. It sucks that we may never get to see Rodgers to Rodgers like we did back with the old great tight end, Miracle in Motown, shout out. But hopefully, if anything, that that convinces Rodgers to stay a couple more years, knowing that we got a high upside receiver. The thing about him, though, is that he is kind of a slot only wide receiver. I know Matt LaFleur said that he thinks he can play on the outside, but in college he did not do much on the outside. So slot only receivers kind of have a tough translation to the NFL. But obviously, he's built like a running back, runs like a running back. Defensive backs do not want any business tackling him, and I think Matt LaFleur is going to go really, really crazy with him in the offense. Imagining a backfield with him and Aaron Jones or AJ Dillon, I think that's very promising. And the PFF comp for Amari Rodgers was Ty Montgomery, and the NFL Network comp for Amari Rodgers was Randall Cobb. So two Packers greats, both have experience playing in the backfield. He's built like both of them. So, and like you said, we haven't had a slot receiver, like a true slot receiver with Matt LaFleur on the headset. I mean, Geronimo Allison, we tried with him in the slot, but he did not show much. So it's nice to have like a actual guy for those three wide receiver sets that we can put inside and just let him go to work.
I think Amari specifically is so. I feel like he's one of the more pro-ready receivers in the draft, just because he's been working with an elite quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, obviously at Clemson. He's got all those skills that you're just like excited about because he's such a hard worker. He has a desire to come in and work right away. He spoke about wanting to play with Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams, months before the draft. So I'm just excited to see him, a polished, pro-ready receiver, come into the system right away and hopefully have a lot of success with Aaron Rodgers. Optimistically, I'm speaking there, and
Optimistically.
obviously Davante Adams as well. At least we'll be for sure that Davante Adams will be on the other side. I think Rodgers will really appreciate a guy like him if he were to come back. So to me, that was a great pick, and I'm like you said, the idea that they were gonna Gutekunst talked about this potentially pick him in the second round. They were deciding between Josh Myers and him, like you mentioned. They went with the O line just because of the value, the positional value. It's more important for the O line than a receiver. But they, the fact that they were willing to trade up and get him obviously shows how much they like him and how much they think he can help the team, especially right away. As not just on offense, maybe even in the Tyler Ervin role in the slot, but also as a kick and punt returner. Matt LaFleur mentioned him as a dual threat guy for the team to be able to return both. So love that pick. Definitely my favorite pick. And I love what we did in the cornerback room. We brought in a guy right away, Eric Stokes, to compete, maybe even push Kevin King for the starting job, but if not, provide excellent depth because he's such a raw athlete and he's got a ton of speed. But also, we brought in Shamar Jean Charles, who's a great productive slot guy from Appalachian State, not a big school, but he was very productive. And he seems like, a guy that probably fell to us. It was a great value pick, kind of a steal, where we were able to add like a legit corner to help compete in the slot as well. So to push Chandon Sullivan and like I said, we've got a ton of depth at that spot now. It's exciting because I feel like in all these different spots where we were like, okay, we might need to add somebody here and there. Defensive line, we brought in a big body. We've got Kingsley Keke and we've got some vets to round that out where we can compete. And then the only other position that we didn't really add depth was middle linebacker, where we got Isaiah McDuffie late. Gutekunst wanted to trade up or wanted to get a middle linebacker early, but then he came out and said that they're going to look to possibly add a veteran there in free agency. So it feels like they're really getting all these holes in order, and really getting this team prepared to win a championship right now. Of course, that all hinges on what Aaron Rodgers does and if they can get him back in the fold. But I'm going to assume that he somehow plays for us in 2021. And if that's the case, I think we're set up for great success this year. And I think our roster is even better than last year.
Yeah, I think this was a great draft for that reasons, for win now reasons. I mean, that's not very Green Bay like to to draft for now, to draft for need, to bolster your roster through the draft for a Super Bowl run. But that's what this draft seems like. We really attacked every position that we were weak at, and helped strengthened our strengths too. Obviously, Rodgers is the big factor there. Aaron Rodgers, not Amari. If Aaron comes back, obviously it's an automatic chance of competing for a Super Bowl, and it's an automatic playoff ticket pretty much. But uh, that's it's no guarantee right now. So it's almost kind of like seems so inconsequential this entire draft if Rodgers isn't on the team. But if he is, this team is looking very, very strong, and there's really no real weak spots on it. They lost obviously Corey Linsley in free agency. They spent a second rounder on Josh Myers, and I trust the Green Bay Packers front office full stop when it comes to drafting offensive linemen on day 2 or 3 because they've been nothing but rock solid on that front. And then we get a high upside corner in Stokes and Amari Rodgers, who I'm sure Matt LaFleur is already designing plays for. Amari Rodgers is like a true Tyler Irvin, just built for that role where Tyler Irvin was speedy but didn't really add anything to the offense other than the speed. But Amari Rodgers, I really believe, is almost like a unicorn, just built for something that no one else on the team can offer right now. And it's just bringing Aaron back now has to be the number one priority, just so this team is really ready to compete for a Super Bowl with an elite quarterback, with an MVP quarterback. And I don't know what other teams Aaron's thinking about. I don't know if that 3-team report is true, but I don't know how many teams are better for him right now than the Packers are, considering you got Devontae Adams, you got receiving help, defense is looking strong with a new defensive coordinator, offensive line is still strong, Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon, they're all back. I just don't know. I don't know if he's going to come back, but it looks like this team is pretty strong.
Yeah, I to me, regardless of what reports of like a list of teams like that could be there or who would be interested, I don't think we're trading him regardless. So to me, that shuts the door on him going anywhere else. And Rodgers knows that. I think he knows that he has the best chance to win here. And to me, winning would cure everything. If they can go, if Rodgers gets back in this locker room, even if they don't come to terms, but Rodgers just says, "All right, I'm going to play. I'm going to play for this team. I'm not going to abandon my teammates." I think that's going to play a factor. This is why I think there's so many factors that could let him come back into the fold. But I think the one most important is that he loves this team. He loves the fans. He loves the organization. From just the team itself. Maybe not everybody in the building, but he loves the team itself. And I think his desire to compete and win a Super Bowl will prevail in the end. And then to me, that's gonna, it comes down to that. And if they go out and win a Super Bowl, it's gonna be hard for him to walk out of the door regardless of what happens. And I think that's one way to mend this whole relationship if it goes deep into even the season. There's a lot at play. There's a lot at stake. Um, I'll tell you this: the draft was a step in the right direction to me. Not just for trying to cure this Rodgers relationship, but just trying to bring this team to a point where they can win now and improve, as opposed to just relying on things that are immaterial to help you win. Like you're depending on development of players that may not develop and things of that nature. So I feel good. I feel good about where we're at, and then, like you said, Griff, it all comes down to Aaron Rodgers, as usual with this team. It's all about Aaron Rodgers because he's the thing that makes this whole machine go. Brian Gutekunst said that. Matt LaFleur said that. Mark Murphy is all in on Rodgers as well. I really feel like they'll figure it out. But if they don't, it's an indictment on everyone in the organization. It's an indictment on everyone. And to me, I just have faith that they'll work this out because I'm going to trust in the team and I'm going to trust in Rodgers. And I think fans should be concerned. I mean, every waking moment I'm thinking about this, but there is certainly a level of I just think that it's a strong possibility that Rodgers is back, even though all the reports and everybody you hear saying it's not likely, and even all these. It's just like I just really strongly believe that he'll be back in this room with Green Bay, and I'm looking forward to competing, this team competing for a championship with him as the quarterback once again.
Yeah, yeah, that's well said. I mean, I'm optimistic. I'm a Packers fan. I'm obviously hoping for the best, hoping that things can reconcile and he is back in a Packers uniform in 2021. And if he is, we've got a bucket list because now we know our days are short, Ron. We got to get up to Lambeau for a game this season. We got to get up to training camp. We got to do everything. We got to do a meet and greet with him for the Salvation Army this December, like he's done before. We got to do everything while we can with this man still in green and yellow. I don't know what else you have to say, Bron. I think we covered a lot here. I mean, obviously, Rodgers being such a big story these past few days, we had to get on the pod and just voice our thoughts. And then, obviously, a great draft. I'm excited about the way this team is going outside of the quarterback position, but hopefully things can regroup with Aaron Rodgers and Mark Murphy, Brian Gutekunst, and the Packers front office.
Yeah, like I said, I really love the way this team is shaping up this year. Obviously, we all know pending Aaron Rodgers, being in the fold. But regardless of that, I love what we did at the. I just think our wide receiver position it went from a position of need to now really a strength on this team. And let's talk about that for just a minute here. We've got Devontae Adams, obviously the best receiver in football. MVS is truly becoming a rising star, and if he can just cut the drops in half, be a little more consistent, he's going to be, he has the potential to be a star in this league, at least as a strong number two to Devontae. And then Alan Lazard, he had some injuries last year that derailed him a little bit, but I think he's been very reliable when he's healthy, and he's had some big games as well. And then you throw in Devin Funchess, who's been a true number one at times for Carolina, went into he's been hurt, he opted out. There's some uncertainty there, but he is he's a low risk, high reward option to be another, really solid contributor for Green Bay. You throw in Amari Rodgers, you throw in EQ, a couple of young guys developing. I really like where this group is at, especially depth wise. And I just feel like now that's one thing that Rodgers can probably look at and say, I kind of like this group, and I'd be willing to play with a lot of these guys. So, not to mention the tight ends. I feel like we have a really strong group of tight ends and H backs there. Offensive line looks a lot stronger than it did, a week ago. And the offense overall looks really good, and I think the defense is on a special path as well. As long as Joe Barry's scheme, everybody can get into that quickly and kind of get going right out of the gate. I'm excited for this team, and I have, as much as it is painful to have watched the last couple of years of losses, we're going to be in it again as long as Rodgers is there. So I'm excited to see, where he takes us, and what we can do with an improved roster and hopefully an improved defensive scheme as well.
Yeah, that's well said, Bron. I'm excited about the weapons we have on this offense. Robert Tunyon coming back, re-signing Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon, the snowplow, coming back with hopefully more snaps this season. And then you throw in Amari Rodgers and maybe the seventh round running back. He can play a role too. I think Amari Rodgers. I think LaFleur. I think he's going to get him involved right away. I think he can just scheme some things open for him, make it easy. That doesn't have to think too much. He's not going to be too big for the moment. I think Rodgers is going to have an immediate impact on the team, and then obviously Marquez Valdez-Scantling, hoping he can just cut down on the drops. That's the only thing holding him back because he's been legitimately one of the best deep threats in the NFL over the past few years. Alan Lazard, he's perfect in this offense. Not perfect, but he's a good role player to throw in the mix every now and then. And obviously the foundation is strong with the best wide receiver in football being your number one wide receiver. So I'm excited about the things we have on this offense, obviously barring Aaron Rodgers returning. I think that's everything, Bron. This was a good discussion we had. Covered a lot of ground, and we'll be back later this offseason and discuss whatever news there is to discuss. Hopefully not much regarding Aaron
Hopefully,
Rodgers,
yeah.
but
Hopefully, we're not discussing like moving on and how Jordan Love is. Like hopefully, we're not talking about anything like that. The next time, yeah, we talk, hopefully it'll be about Aaron Rodgers. Cementing the fact that he'll be here in 2021, and we move
yes.
forward. So that's what I'm hoping for sure.
And hopefully we don't have to do the top 10 Aaron Rodgers moments video.
Oh
Hopefully we don't have
gosh.
to do that. Do a whole sappy little farewell thing. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. Hopefully we're on here discussing Aaron Rodgers signs 10-year deal with Green Bay. That would be nice. Who knows though? It's going to be a long summer, folks. So buckle up. But as for me and Braun, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening to this point. We'll be here later this offseason to discuss whatever there is to discuss. And you can subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, where you get your podcasts. We'll be there. And thanks for listening. Go Pack Go.
Thanks everyone. Go Pack Go.